I know these songs pretty well. I know how they translate to different sources, so I like to use them as like a rough gauge for, you know, do we have enough bass? Is the treble too bright? I have different mixes depending on the different styles. It's also a really good idea to have reference songs where you know that something might be too bright or it might be too bass heavy for your style. So in this case, I have mixed by Joey Sturgis, and he always has very bright sounding mixes and masters. So I like to use this song as a reference to know if I'm getting too bright. And then some of these other ones I use, like this song I use for like low end punch. For comparison, I've always been a huge fan of Will Putney mixes, so this is Impact. Okay, and then this one is a band called Bring Me the Horizon. And it's kind of something right in the middle of everything. You know, it's more mid-focused. So it's good to have a variety. And like I said, when you're referencing music, don't be afraid to put in something that you can use as a gauge to know if you went too far. It's almost as helpful as a really good sounding mix that you love and know really well. I'll listen to the song for a little bit, jump around, and just try to see if I notice things that are distracting. Because my job as a mastering engineer is to I don't want to really change the artist's vision of the song. Like, they spend a lot of time mixing this. They probably, if they worked with producers, whatever, like, this is the vision. So my job is just to try to bring it up to a competitive loudness, balance it in a way that it sounds awesome on earbuds, headphones, you know, in your car, whatever, right? It's got to be good everywhere. So there's a lot of strategies we're going to do to try just to adjust the frequencies right, you know, different compression techniques to try to add a little bit of movement or gel the track together, try to make it sound larger than life. Okay, so let's listen to this song. Let's talk about what I like about it. There's a really nice like subsonic punch in the kick drum, which I'm really digging. And something else is the snare might sound like it's jumping out right now, but that is the right volume to have the snare. Okay, it needs to be that loud because when we start bringing this up to level, we're going to keep crushing that transient more and more and more. And it's not going to react the way we want it to when we get it to the mastering volume. So kudos, Austin, who mixed this. I think that snares at that level is going to be really helpful. So you can hear the differences, right? This is another reason why it's always good to have a bunch of references, because Will Putney's mixes are there's not a lot of low mids. This track has a lot of low mids. And if we just listen to Will's mix, you know, we might want to scoop out all those low mids and it could end up sounding hollow. We're going to try to find like a good middle ground. We're going to pull in a compressor here. We'll start things off with that because I know it'll bite into that. The sub in that kick drum is going to help us bite into that with the compressor a little bit. So we might have to be a little bit careful because if there's too much there, it's going to start sounding too washy. What I like to do is just really bite into it. Let's find where that movement is and then dial it in way too aggressively. And then we back it off and then see where it sits. So right here, you get the full, like, low-end punch from the kick drum, right? But it might be too much. We might have to, you know, make the attack a little bit shorter to control that a little bit. So let's make the release super fast so we're listening to just what's going on that initial attack. Let's listen to it on 30. This is 30 milliseconds. So this is 30 milliseconds, usually long enough to let a snare transient completely through and a kick drum transient. This might be a cool starting spot, actually. It's going to be between 3 and 10, I think. There's still the punch there. We're starting to get some cool movement, and now we're just going to dial everything back and make it not so insane. Actually, let's keep it crazy, because I wanna show you what happens when we dial the release. If we slow it down, what's gonna end up happening is it's gonna feel like we're pushing the song back, like back in space. It's not gonna feel up close and aggressive. I can tell you right now, I'm probably gonna have it at 0.1. I just want to show you for just to explore that a little bit. See if you can hear how the mix sounds like it's going deeper into or farther away from you. And a little bit of this is the gain difference. But to me, what ends up, if it just doesn't, it loses its aggressiveness. So I'm gonna keep it right here, man. We want to keep it. We want to keep it short. Otherwise, especially when there's those fast double kick spot, like in the beginning here. This is going to get completely destroyed by this compressor if we have it, you know, even at 100 milliseconds, it's like almost questionable if we're going to be destroying those transients too much. Okay, but I think this is a safe bet. So now I'm just going to dial in this threshold until I start hearing that we're biting into it, and then we got to back that off a little bit. Okay, so that's clearly pretty aggressive. So like right around here, we're starting to grab onto the kick drum and the snare and just starting to pull it down a little bit. But it's also giving the song a nice movement when the snare and kick are hitting. It's very easy to lose perspective when you're mastering. So it's always good, you know, you try to do this as fast as you possibly can. Like the fastest way to burn out is to solo at EQ and go in like the sub region. You lose complete perspective of music after that. I'll probably avoid doing that. We got to do some digging of some frequencies here. All right, and then as always, I always recommend doing a quick little bypass level match, you know, before and after. Make sure that nothing's sounding crazy. We always want it to be sounding better, and not because it's louder. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. I have a feeling I'm going to come back to this towards the end of the mastering chain, because at 3 milliseconds we're really taking the transient away from the kick, which we're going to need to do, but I don't know if we want to be that aggressive yet. Let's get into the EQ a little bit. We need to do some shaping here. And I think if we get the low mids right, it's going to open up this track a lot. So this is just by habit, me going to Fab Filter. It just is a solid EQ. You could probably use almost anything. I really don't think the EQs matter all that much, and people will probably give me hell for saying that, but I can make way bigger mistakes setting this compressor than I would if I chose a different EQ. Just my one man's opinion. I don't think it needs too much, but let's go in and see if we can dig some of those low mids out just to open it up and make it sound a little more 3D. So typically when it sounds a little bit claustrophobic, like everything's on top of each other, usually around this range, between like 400 and like 150. So I'm actually going to make this a lot more surgical. We got to be really careful, man, because there's a lot going on in this region. We want it to sound thick. We want that snare to have that punch. And that snare is living around, it's pretty high, right? I mean, where is it? We can find that snare. Where is it? I'm gonna burn my ears out if I do this too long. So it's actually like the majority of the snare is like around 400. That's wild. You know what? I'm not gonna mess with it. Let's leave this alone for right now. It might not need it. So that's pretty cool. This is a cool trick. So one strategy is you can use like to make the width bigger is you can do a stereo enhancer, some sort of crazy mid-side EQ stuff. While that's cool, it messes with the phase a lot and you'll lose the vision of the song really fast. So there's a cool trick that I like to use, which is just using this Wave Center plugin, and I'm just gonna bump up the volume on the sides, okay? With respect to, so the center channel is just anything mono. So that's gonna be your bass, kick, snare, vocals, things like that. Sides are gonna be your guitars and cymbals or whatever else. So we're just gonna push this up a little bit, and you'll see the mix just starts like opening up, but it's still like very coherent, okay? And we're just gonna drag those guitars by raising the volume a little bit closer to the listener so it feels like the band is in a line, because right now it feels a little bit offset to me. Let's go to this part. So something that we always want to check once we do this is we want to check it in mono. Stereo enhancer. This is a mono button. I'm lazy and I don't know where it is on Cubase right now. So I'm just going to go to use this because I know it works. We want to make absolutely sure that when everything collapses to mono, we didn't just throw the guitars on top of the vocal. Okay, so when it goes to mono, the vocals still have to be there. They have to be present and aggressive. You know, we don't, just because it sounds cool in stereo doesn't mean it's a good master, right? We have to double check these things. Cool. I think we're okay still. So the vocals are still there, the snare's still punchy, the guitars have been collapsed. But it still sounds good, right? This is important when people are like, when you're on the street and you're walking around and there's somebody, like you're trying to promote your band, right? And there's someone you really want to play a song, you're like, oh, all I have is my phone, like check this out. If you screw up this mono thing, it's going to sound like garbage on your phone, right? If it still sounds good in mono, you're 90% of the way there. Got some questions for me. If the mix is good, the mastering engineer should just give a stamp of approval. Yeah, I mean, I need to get it up to the right volume that's typical for the genre. But I mean, yeah, if it's compressed right, I shouldn't add any more compression. If it is limited right, or if it's already saturated, I shouldn't add more saturation, you know? So, I mean, I loaded up this EQ thinking I was going to go do some fancy, like, black magic trickery here. But, you know, after listening to it, and nothing stands out, right? So why do stuff just because that's, you know, what we usually do? Like, you don't want to fall in that routine. So there's some things that I'm hearing that I think we can address. One of these, I'm going to put my insurance policy plugin on here. I'll show you what that is. So that's, I mean, if you've come into a live stream before, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this linear multi-band compressor on here in electro mode because it sounds cool there. This compressor is literally only there for moments in the song that build up. So for if you had like a pop song and you had a chorus that has like 8 vocals on the chorus, you know, certain frequencies are going to stack and they can sound harsh, right? In the chorus, but not anywhere else. Or like when you have this like blast beat part in the beginning, certain frequencies are going to be dominating the mix and others aren't. So by putting this linear phase multiband compressor on the track at this stage, this is just kind of like an insurance policy to make sure that if anything's jumping out, it tones it down just a little bit. It's not there to be super aggressive. So we're not really going to make any adjustments. We're just going to pull the range down. So let me just show you what ends up happening. So right now we're not doing anything. Okay, so I pull the range down and now we're starting to dig into it. And then only at the moments of the most extreme changes is this going to react to it, okay? I'm actually going to dig into it a little bit more. Let's go crazy with it. I want to show you what it's doing. So this is what it's doing. So it's going after, yeah, these different regions, right? We have low. This is basically your sub. So this is going to be where the fatness of the bass and the kick drum are. Here is going to be where our snare lives, and then the body and chest of the vocals. This part is the intelligibility of the vocals and the guitars. This region is going to be the airiness of the vocal, a lot of the cymbals, and maybe the top end sizzle of a guitar. And up here is basically the air, is what I like to call it. We can adjust these to taste if we want to, but we got to be careful because it's really easy to completely lose the balance of your song if you go in and say, oh yeah, like, I hate this frequency. Like, I mean, that's 3 dB over this whole range. I mean, you can do it. There's literally no rules when it comes to this stuff, but just be aware that this is pretty substantial. Let's make this more normal. So some things that we want to be careful of. This range, where the guitars can sound annoying, and also that vocal presence part. Because this, especially 1 to 2K, can really build up because a lot of instruments occupy that. And if the song isn't arranged properly or whatever, like, you can really destroy this section. So you're going to need something that goes in and out to clean that up. So if we solo this area, okay, there's a lot going on here, right? We hear a kick, we hear guitars, we'll hear vocals, right? So the majority of like the snappiness from the snare is actually in this band. So if we want to, bring out a little bit more snap and a little bit more air in those vocals, we can just bump this up like a half dB. So let's see what that sounds like. See how that opened it up? So, but we don't want to make it too bright. It's so easy in mastering to like crank up the high end and think it sounds awesome, and then you come back the next day and you're like, oh, it sounds like crap. So don't fool yourself when adjusting the top end of mixes. I do want to add something. We'll bring back Will's mix here, Will Putney. I want to brighten this up a little bit more. Let's see. I think it's safe to say we can brighten it up a little bit. This is my favorite trick in the whole world. Let's add some air to this. Let's make this sound hi-fi. Use a Pultec EQ. It's amazing. This works so well. You go make it super broad, like 16 kilohertz, way above any of the harsh crap that in the vocals, above the harshness of the cymbals, and then having it broad helps to. So when you boost this frequency, it'll actually, that the curve of the EQ, the shelf here, will extend way, way, way down into, 8K and possibly even lower than that if we have it this broad. So basically we're accentuating the really, really high airy frequencies that aren't that harsh to listen to, and then gently lifting up the top part where the vocals have air and presence and a little bit of that guitar fizzy stuff. So I want to show you how much this will open this mix up. It's amazing. So right here, you can really hear it just like popped almost. When I dial back to 0, you'll be like, oh man, it's so dark. Right? This is way, way, way too much, okay? So what I'm listening for is those cymbals. When those cymbals start sounding annoying to me, I know I've gone too far. So right on here, it's pretty gross. So just a tiny bit back. I love this part, the breath in. This trick will accentuate that and it'll make it sound brutal. Yeah, dude, this is awesome. So this is bypassed. Feel how the mix just fell in, got sucked in. It doesn't feel in your face, right? And then when I bring this back, and then it's just you grab the band and pull them right up. Sounded pretty awesome. All right, let's see how loud we can get this. This is something I like to use a lot, but I don't know if we're going to use it in this mix because it sounded good. So check this out. So the way they tell you to use this plugin is to basically clip it, which I can't even do apparently. Oh, there we go. So you have it clipping, and then you have this effect to 100, and you have the curve to 0 or -50, and then you just kind of ride this curve up, and this is going to saturate the mix. They tell you it's just adds magic to your mix, but that's a bunch of garbage. It's saturating it. But I don't know how much more we need to do because we already have some brutally distorted guitars. The vocalist is brutal AF. Drums are crushing it. I want to be able to A/B it just to make sure I'm not insane. Let me see. Kind of sounds about right. So things we want to listen for. Let's listen for the kick drum, the impact. We want to listen to that snare. And then we also want to listen to the vocalist because as we start saturating this mix, things are going to start falling on top of the vocals, okay? So as long as we maintain clarity in the vocals and the kick and snare are still punchy, then we're probably pretty safe to keep pushing this thing up. You can hear how that kick drum's really popping out now. Oh, you hear? Okay, this is a perfect example. When we started using this and we started really saturating the mix, those cymbals now are ringing like crazy. Let me find it. That one. It's, oh, I'm going to find it for you guys and then punish you. Hang on. Where am I at? It was right in there. Yeah, we don't like that. So this is the whole part of the mastering process that I'm worried a lot of people don't know about, and it's as you go down your chain, you have to go back and compensate for it. You know, it's because you don't know as you start bringing up the level and doing the saturation stuff how the mix that you have keeps evolving. And so you have to go back and make small corrections to make sure that you're not losing the magic you had before, the step before, okay? This sounds thick, powerful, punchy, awesome with the saturation, but now we're starting to bring out all this stuff that people don't like. So now we have to address this either in a previous stage or we can do something moving forward. And I think we should move forward because it sounds pretty awesome. And I know the tool I'm going to use to fix this whistling thing, and that's Soothe. If you guys don't have this, this is the one plugin I'm recommending to everybody because This thing does something unique that I haven't heard anybody else do. So what Soothe is basically like an intelligent de-esser. So it's going to find whistling things that are obnoxious, and it will selectively remove them if it exceeds a threshold. And so we adjust the threshold with the depth knob. We can adjust how wide of the frequencies or how broad the peaks are that it's going to be finding the resonance bands of. And then we can have it identify selectivity, which I'm not exactly sure how this works. I'm going to have to do some digging and exploring to figure out exactly what selectivity does. But to my ears, if it's more selective, it's going to focus on a certain frequency range over another. So for mastering, it's usually better to have it a little bit less selective so that it will more evenly remove frequencies from all over and not just pinpoint one thing unless there's just one small problem area. I almost ran out of breath, man. That was a long explanation. I've been seeing a lot of people use Soothe lately, but I never looked much into it. Dude, it's amazing. Demo it. I met the people that program this. They are brilliant. I haven't really found a plugin that does anything like this. And these dudes have a patent on this. So it's like, until someone finds a better way of getting around this problem, which I mean, it took how many years? 40 years for somebody to come up with this idea. These guys are going to reign supreme forever. Just hop on board. It'll make your life so much easier, man. Yeah. Okay. So let's dig in. I'm going to play the song, and then we're going to put this in delta mode so we hear what it's taking out. Okay. And I'm sure I've said this a million times on my live streams, but we're going to listen for the area where it sounds the most terrible. Okay. Find the bad region to our ears. Try to make it as specific to those frequencies as possible, and then we'll get rid of that. Okay? We shouldn't be removing anything that sounds musical. We shouldn't be removing things that sound like instruments. If it sounds like an instrument, you don't need Soothe on it. Basically. At least that's my philosophy, okay? So let's play a song, let's find some stuff. Okay. So if we dig in, this is what it's doing. So you can hear there's this one whistling frequency here around 2K. And then I'm willing to bet that there's going to be something around here when we get to this like breakdown part. Let's see. So if it's, like I said, if it sounds musical, we don't need Soothe. Okay. Let's move this crap out of here. Okay, so let me explain what I'm doing with these things. So this is the detector circuit. If we take a band and push it up, what it's doing is it's increasing the level or the sensitivity in this region for this to attenuate out. What that means is if we're taking too much of like this like vocal out, we can do this, and it's a lot harder to detect the vocals then at this region. So then you can attenuate more of this other stuff that's annoying. And as awesome as this plugin is, you got to be super careful, because what ends up happening is you think it sounds awesome, and you come back the next day and everybody has like a lisp. The drummer has like the cymbals sound like they have a lisp on. Like there's all these things that start happening when you go overboard with Soothe that'll completely ruin the master. So this I think is a good starting spot. Okay, so now we're gonna adjust the sharpness and selectivity. Again, we're aiming for a terrible sound, right? It's pretty musical right now, but that's because we're digging in so deep so we can hear what's going on. When we dial it back, it'll just be like these ringy things that we don't really hear, but it makes it painful to listen to if we were to crank this up in our car. Yeah, so when we have the selectivity lower, it's starting to find these other resonant bands and these other regions that are kind of annoying. So cool. I think we're in a good spot. So let me put this back to 0 so I don't blow everybody's ears out. And we're just gonna push this up. And I'm a big wuss. I'm like scared to like make commitments, like 100% commitment, you know what I mean? So like I always like to dial this like 80%. I want to let some of the natural signal through. I don't want everything to be processed by Soothe, so. And that's just like my philosophy on mastering, I guess. So way too much, right? Sounds like everybody has a lisp. That's it, little things. So like when you have this spacey ambient lead, it just helps to tuck it back a little bit in the mix. See, without it, it kind of starts sounding, it starts like whistling, right? It's like, it gets louder. And it's not louder in a pleasant way, it's louder in like a slightly annoying way. Yeah, there you go. You can hear it. Especially that high frequency note. There you go. That's Soothe, guys. Soothe is awesome. Let's go back to Will Putney and see if it sounds better than his record. Dude, his is definitely a lot more harsh than yours. It's so hard to say if we want to make it brighter. Part of me says let's make it a little bit brighter after referencing. Part of me says probably okay. So this is something where I would come back in the morning. Guys in Funeral Singer, sorry, I'm not giving this to you tonight because I'm going to check this in the morning on some fresh ears before I send anything to you to make sure that we got it dialed in just right. I think I have a good solution. I think we don't want to make it necessarily that much brighter. I think what we might want to do is dig into these low mids a tiny bit. No, I don't want to mess with it, man. It sounds right to me. But I think we can make it a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to do some really gentle curves up here to just try to brighten it up. And you know what? We might... Let me see. Because I'm wondering if I want to do some mid-side stuff, but my concern is those cymbals are going to start getting wacky. Let's A-B this. This is the right move. That's what we want to do. It just needed a little bit of bump in that top end. And then we're going to focus on this one. And I'm just going to show you how I dial this bad boy in. So I found a really awesome... This is like my go-to setting for anything metal or heavy and aggressive. This setting... So if you have FabFilter... look at what I'm doing here because I really think this sounds pretty awesome. Okay. The attack is at 10 seconds. It's insane. The release is pretty fast. It's like 39 milliseconds. And then I'm using this dynamic style limiting algorithm. To me, this is like the most transparent, but it's a little bit smoother than a clipper, I guess. I don't know. I think it sounds pretty awesome. I'm just going to push it up and see how the song's reacting to us when we get this to level. And what's also going to happen is as we start biting into the song, it's going to open up a little bit more, and we're going to start. I'm pretty sure the highs are going to be perceived to be louder, and it's going to be almost perfect. Here's another tip. Turn this crap off. Don't be fooled by this. If I hold Alt, this output should go down. Thank you, Tooltip. You're way better than that bogus-ass Microsoft paperclip thing. Don't cheat. We're not going to look at this garbage. We're not going to look at any of this. We're going to turn all this off. We're going to hold Alt, and we're just going to ride this bad boy up until it starts sounding like garbage, and we're going to set the level this way. That's garbage. Again, I want to remind you guys what I'm listening for. Listen to the extended deepness of the kick drum, okay, the sub of the kick. We're listening to the vocal. We're listening to the snare. If there's one thing I'm going to listen to the most for this type of music, is going to be probably the snare. For this stage, if you kill the transient on your snare from your limiter, it's over, right? I'm going to just make this final adjustment, then we're going to turn all these gauges on and see how aggressive I am. Let me turn my monitoring up. This is going to be hot, man. I know I'm afraid to turn this on because it's probably at like, I don't know, like minus. We're probably digging in like 3 dB, which is insane. But you know what? There's no rules. Let's see my fate here. Here we go. Yeah. We're really biting into it. But you know what? It sounds right there. So whatever. That's why we don't cheat. We use our ears. So important, okay? Now we can set this. If I turn this up, you guys are going to get your ears blown off. So I'm just going to, let me see where this is. It's probably going to be really loud. And then before I send it up, yeah, look at it. It's just like a square wave. All right, so I'm hearing a little bit of cymbal stuff going on. So we got to be more aggressive with our soothe here. We're going to find those frequencies now. Oh, it might be right here. Moment of truth here is gonna do some bypassing, right? All right, so let's check this out. This is always a scary moment. By hitting this bypass button, the truth is revealed. Okay, let's hear the before and after. Oh, yeah. So what do I hear? When we take all those the mastering chain off, the mix falls in, right? The instruments are kind of isolated. Nothing's gelled. Like there's a loss of like a sound stage. Like if you close your eyes and listen, it just sounds like there's a snare in the middle of the room. Cymbals are over here a little bit. And then when we bring in the mastering, it's like everything just gets in a line. And there's a full band, and it just gels, and it opens up. And I think it sounds pretty awesome. Let's turn this up. Let's compare it to the songs that probably cost thousands and thousands of dollars more. Because if you're paying someone like Will Putney, you got a pretty good budget. There is a ringing frequency I gotta kill. Hold up. Hold up. I'm gonna loop it. I know it's in here. Oh, God, there it is. Hold on. There you go. You're welcome. So the only difference really at this point is Will has a scoop sound and you guys don't. Like that's it. And I can be more aggressive and go in and dig that out if we want. But the way that the song is arranged and the tuning and everything else, like it kind of works for the song, you know? So something we probably should do just as a bookkeeping type of thing. So there's a few things I like to do. I usually would put on like max bass or something. It doesn't need it. It sounds good. So I'm not going to do that. We should look at a high pass filter just to make sure that the subs are clean, but it looks good. Like I didn't notice that this is an issue, and I'm wanting to come back in and put a high pass on it just because I always do that, and it doesn't need it again. I like the darker mixes, less scoop sound. I think it's at a good point now. I could maybe use a tad more highs, but I'm not sure I need it. I'm with you, man. It's one of those things where it's like, what is the volume that this is going to be played at? If it's cranked, which I'm pretty sure everyone who listens to something like this is going to just have it like turn to 11. I always like to tend to go a little bit darker because our ears will hear, you know, the higher end frequencies a little bit. They're more sensitive to that kind of stuff. So I'm always a little bit hesitant to like really pop the high end on it a lot more. We've already done a lot of lifting on it as it is, but I'll know tomorrow morning on a fresh set of ears for sure. And maybe I'll include this master, and then I'll give you guys another one with the high ends boosted. But I'm willing to bet you always pick the high end one over this one because it'll be louder, right? It's gonna be, it's the when you compare a dark mix to a bright mix, like in my opinion, 9 times out of 10 you always favor the brighter mix. But then if you have an entire album like that, that's when it's a problem. That's when things like are like, okay, like my ears are like, it hurts to listen to this album. And it's kind of like the Pepsi and Coke thing. Like if you guys ever heard about that, where Pepsi was winning all these taste tests and Coca-Cola, people were like, we need to make why does everybody love Pepsi better? And the reason is that Pepsi is sweeter. And when you just do a little taste test, Pepsi always wins because we favor the sweet. But if you're drinking an entire can of soda, you know, usually they prefer Coke. People who drink cola will tend to choose Coke. I think it's the same thing here with the high end. We got to be really careful because when you only hear a little bit of it, it sounds good, but the album in, you're gonna be wishing that I didn't do that. But I'll send you both. I mean, you guys, this is your art. I want to make sure you guys are happy. So I have a YouTube channel. I have a lot of really awesome tutorials on there for mixing and mastering. It's a really good resource. So I have some videos that are like 2 hours long, but it's all time-stamped, so you can go through and watch how I would mix a song from start to finish, and you can just jump around wherever you want to go. So if you want to just see how I do guitars or something, you can just hit the timestamp and you'll go right there. And if you find those videos helpful, please share them with people, and if they're valuable, let's get it out so that people aren't listening to a bunch of garbage advice from everybody who has a camera. You know, they're getting some stuff that's actually decent. I'll see you guys on the next live stream every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Shout out to Funeral Singer for letting me show everybody my secrets and how I master songs. So with that, have a good night.